Tall poppy syndrome. You probably never heard about it, but as soon as you do hear about it, you're going to go, oh my God, I have this. And we're going to help you have it not affect you anymore. 90% of women in this recent survey, when they heard about tall poppy syndrome, said, oh my God, I've experienced this.
Hi, welcome to Brave Single Moms. I'm one of your hosts, Sarah Lowwater.
And I'm Amanda Carroll. We're so glad you're here, where we help you live a strong and courageous life. It's mind-blowing. I can't wait to Sarah has no idea. No idea. When we got in to record this episode, I was like, I want to talk about tall poppy syndrome. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what it is until we hit record on the mics.
All right, so here we go.
But you walked in stressed. Are you okay?
So moving might be the actual most work I've ever done in my life.
Moving as a single mom.
Yeah, it is.
Oh God.
So on Monday night, we find out we are getting a house. That we've been looking for a house for months now. We find out we're getting this house. We're getting the keys on Thursday. This is Monday night.
Yeah.
Not a single thing in our house is packed. Okay, not one single thing. And it's just me and my two kids and our two dogs, and we own way more stuff than we should.
Yeah.
And so we get the keys Thursday, and we have to be completely moved in by Sunday morning.
Okay, no problem.
Completely moved in and have the old house cleaned and ready to surrender by Sunday morning.
I hate the move out clean.
Okay, so we managed to pack and move every single thing from 0 boxes packed to moving successfully. We did it. I did have to hire a cleaner for the house. I was like, I can't, there's just something's got to give, and I'm either hiring movers or a cleaner, and let's hire the cleaner. Here's what I'll say: the last time I moved, I hired the movers. The kind of movers. They just do all the things.
Yeah.
I didn't even really have to help. I just kind of sat there and waited. This time I did it myself.
And by the way, didn't accept any help. I don't know how many times I texted you and called you and said, what can I do? I should have just showed up.
Girl, it was maybe, and had you just shown up, maybe we could have found something for you to help with. You're just the kind of person that would have just dove in.
Yeah.
But when so many people were asking me if they could help, and the reality was, as much as I wanted to say yes, I was looking around. I'm like, I just don't even know what you would do. It's hard and it's a lot and it's stressful, but also I've kind of got it under control.
But Sarah, okay, that's like a whole episode and not what we wanted to talk about. It's about asking for help and accepting it.
I know.
And it's such a single mom thing for thinking it's easier to do it on our own instead of inviting somebody else to our mess of cleaning out drawers.
Yes.
And okay, I mean, I get it. I respected you, but part of me didn't want to respect you. And
I will say this, though, it really put in perspective how awesome of teenagers I've raised, because
there you go.
Lily's 15 and Owen's 12. And we had Monday to Saturday to move, but I still had to work. And so it's not like I could just drop everything and start packing and moving.
Right.
And so I didn't have to tell them to do a single thing. I didn't have to.
Awesome.
Lily took on this project as the moving manager.
Oh,
and
sweet.
She managed everything. She knew where we were and what needed to be done and who was doing what. And I was just so blown away, impressed by this human. Now, I will say that kind of falls into her personality as a little bit of control freak. And when she doesn't have a clear picture in her mind of how something is going to play out, she really just likes to do it herself because she doesn't trust that anybody else is going to do it quite as well.
Not asking for anybody.
I can't imagine where she got that from.
Help. I wonder if this relates to tall poppy syndrome.
Oh, perhaps.
Okay. See where this falls in. So, just scrolling through TikTok and I see this tall poppy syndrome. My jaw drops. I'm like, oh my God, this explains my entire career and pretty much every past relationship except my current one.
Okay.
With Sean.
Okay.
Very
intrigued.
It comes from Australia. It's an Australian term. And they did a survey that found that 9 out of 10 women in the workforce are experiencing tall poppy syndrome or have in the past. And it comes from the field of orange poppies. We know poppies very well in California. Their wildflowers are everywhere. I think they're the state flower, aren't they?
are.
The orange poppy. So you could see a big field. Imagine you're on a hike and you see beautiful wildflowers. It's a huge field of orange poppies, and there's one that's taller than all the others. Because orange poppies usually are all very uniform if you look at a field of poppies. But there could be one tall poppy. Guess what the field of poppies do to the tall poppy?
Oh, no. They tear it down.
They suffocate it out.
Oh, no.
And this even comes back from I did a deep dive, Google, nerdy hours of researching tall poppy syndrome.
Yes.
Okay, it also comes from this Roman emperor then that said, well, we can't have anyone shining and succeeding above and beyond anyone else. So tall poppy syndrome was created. And what it means is when someone is experiencing success, then others feel more comfortable criticizing, making fun of, and even cutting them down. Just like somebody, if you were on that hike, what would you do to the tall poppy? Would you say, oh, I'm going to cut that tall poppy down to make everything look uniform? Or would you be like, look at that shining star. I'm going to water that tall poppy. It must need more water than the others. I'm going to feed that tall poppy with some extra fertilizer. It must need a little bit more. So we have a huge problem in our workforce and in our society as a culture that when we see someone, maybe even our own industry, being very successful, eventually our society cuts them down. Look at like Taylor Swift.
I mean, anybody, right? As soon as you see them being succeed, look at the comments of somebody who's doing something really great or has just blown up or is super successful. You're going to see, we call them haters, right? The haters in the comments. Like, people love to hate.
So I'm curious. I know how I've experienced tall poppy syndrome. And I'm trying to think about how I think it really does relate to single mom life.
Absolutely.
In an incredible way. Because I'd love to know what you think. Because this is your first time, so think about it. You're the first time hearing tall poppy syndrome. So I experienced that very much in the workforce as a single mother trying to be very successful. Because I didn't start out life thinking that I was going to be a career-oriented woman. I was raised in a very conservative background, and I was raised to marry a guy that would let me be a stay-at-home mom. But really inside, that's not what I wanted. It was just culturally what I thought was accepted. But then I ventured out, got divorced, and I was like, no, I like being successful. I like having my own thing. This is good. So I went for it. And I have a high ambition. Like,
absolutely.
This shouldn't be a bad thing. I have a lot of ambition and a lot of ideas. And when I was walking that out in the workforce and I was working in a Christian, very conservative Christian environment, I was seen kind of as a weirdo, right? And why are you doing that? Well, I had to support my family. Number one, I had to become successful. But often I was made fun of at work and criticized. I was called a diva. And I went to one boss and I said, I was asking for more of a flexible work schedule. Like, I need to leave this time to pick up my kids. I need to, can I record this part of the show? And I remember sitting across from him and him saying, well, Amanda, you just want it all. And you know what I said?
Indeed.
I said, well, yeah. Like, why wouldn't I?
Right.
But instead, and that organization let me go because I didn't fit the brand. So they tall poppied me. Like, they cut me off because like, no, we want you to be down here on this brand. And my show was incredibly successful. I had 15 million listeners. There was nothing at all about my performance. It was about that I was too ambitious for the culture that I was in.
It's so interesting. And I think that anytime somebody is trying to do something different than what's outside of the cultural norm, whether that be the overall society culture or the culture in a workplace or environment, it creates stares. Now, you're going to have the cheerleaders, and maybe those are the other tall poppies, right? You're gonna have the cheerleaders,
okay,
the people,
exactly where
the people who see you shine, and they are like, yes, Amanda, you are my tall poppy sister.
You need some water?
Yes, as soon as those are the men and women, but for the sake of this conversation, we'll say the other women in our lives that cheer us on and push us forward. But then there's also the people that kind of shun us for that. And this, to me, very much relates to motherhood and is the first example I think of it because, I've spent most of my children's lives as a single mother, as you have as well. And being a single mom, we get to parent, we kind of have to parent differently, especially a single mom where dad's not really in the picture super frequently, if at all. We have to parent differently because otherwise we're just these big balls of nervous energy all the time. And if you've listened to our previous episodes, you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about, or kind of approaching things with a different perspective or a different mindset. And when my kids were really little, one thing that really comes to mind when we talk about tall poppy is like, I would do things very differently. So I've told you, and I've told our listeners many times before, I've fostered like hyper independence in my kids, right? So little things that they could struggle with, that struggle would create, I would let them struggle. I would make them do things on their own. I didn't care if it took 20 minutes for them to put their shirt on. They were going to put their own shirt on.
Yep.
And I sometimes by other mothers would get very judged and ridiculed and dirty looks, especially people who didn't know me, but even people who did, for the way that I would approach. You're really not going to help her. You're really not going to help him. And I'm like, I hear what you're saying, that I'm not coming to their rescue, and you see that as maybe not a very nice mommy thing of me to do, but I have my intentions and purposes around it. But I was kind of cut out of a lot of mommy groups because I parent so much differently than they did.
Well, I think there's also permission to talk about something a little bit deeper with you. Permission to ask.
Absolutely.
If you don't want to talk about it, we can edit this out of the podcast.
All right.
Okay. I wonder if you also experience that because you are incredibly tall and an incredibly fit and an incredibly beautiful woman.
Thank you.
And if you experience that around other women that get uncomfortable because there's that competitive thing.
So especially around other moms. And it's so unfortunate. I can't tell you how many times I've, once somebody has taken the time to get to know me, has said to me, "You're so much different than I thought you would be."
Oh,
my gosh,
that's a terrible thing to say.
What did you think I would be like, and that has happened a lot of times, but I do. I can feel the judgment, or maybe it's, I hate to use the term jealousy.
That's what tall poppy syndrome, I think, is rooted in.
It's rooted envy. Envy a little bit maybe. But there is also, and I wrote something which is really about just women and how we treat each other. And I'll read it. And we can put it in somewhere. It's out.
I texted you something about that the other day. I'm gonna look this up.
But it's very much that way. And so I see that a lot. And when you talk about tall poppy, I initially, when you first said it, my initial reaction was, if I don't have tall poppy syndrome, I have a fear of it. I have a fear of tall poppy syndrome. And one of those things is this like fear to be seen because of this fear to be judged. And so what I have learned in my awareness within myself is that sometimes I will do or not do something because of this fear of being judged or being, and what will happen is I will create in my mind the story of what will happen if I'm seen or do the thing, and then I'll create in my mind of how other people will react to it, and the judgments they'll pass, and then I'll start reacting to those judgments that only live inside my head.
Right.
That never actually even happened. Now, I've come so far with this, but there's still a lot of it. There's still a lot of it there. And I think we all probably struggle, and that's that fear of judgment. That's the fear of making somebody else feel jealous, the fear of making somebody else feel envy.
So how do we handle this tall poppy syndrome? I have a couple of angles and ideas on this. Because I also think it makes us play small.
It does. Absolutely.
And I don't want to play small anymore. Or it makes us, when we're sitting next to somebody, I always do the bleacher comment because I'm a baseball mom.
Right.
When I'm sitting next to another baseball mom and they're like, oh, you work? I was like, yeah, I do. And Sean's always on me because he's like, tell people what you do.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm like, oh, I've got a podcast. And he's like, no, she owns a podcast network.
Yeah.
And she has this, this following. She created this thing. He speaks up for me, but I dumb myself down because I don't want to make the person next to me feel weird.
Feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but feel like you're boasting, like you're bragging,
right.
or like you're saying that you're better than them in some way when you're telling them what you do.
And I don't think I am.
No,
and I'm
that's,
always like, well, but I'm a single mom, and this is what I created so I could be with my kids.
I also think that there's a reflection piece here. So when we look at somebody, everything that we love, and this isn't the thing I wrote too, but everything that we see in somebody else that we love, that we look up to, that we're inspired by, that we think is so great, it lives inside of us. But everything we see in somebody else that makes us feel jealous or triggered or angry, that's inside of us too. We are all just mirrors for each other.
Yep.
And so I think sometimes when you meet somebody and there's envy or jealousy or judgment of any kind being passed towards that person, it's always an opportunity to say, what about them is in me that is making me uncomfortable? Is it, I think that there's a lot of, I've created this narrative in this story that I haven't lived up to my dreams and aspirations because of X, Y, and Z. But then there's this person who also has the same X, Y, and Z, and crap, she's lived up to hers and she's done all of the things that I've always said I couldn't do because of X, Y, and Z. And now they're really forced to have to look at themselves in the mirror and say, were those reasons just excuses? Did I really just and that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a hard pill. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think there's a piece of that in there.
I want to read this. Maybe I'll save this for the end. I really had a problem as a single mom with envy with other married moms, especially early on in my divorce. And I think I may have tall poppied them. I don't know if that's the right saying. Because it's like, I think especially, we all know that social media makes envy grow. Right. And when I would see them post about their anniversary, their wedding anniversary, and how wonderful the relationship was. Or I think there was a specific incident that made me curl up in a ball and cry and bawl because it was a friend of mine showing her anniversary present that was in a Tiffany's box. Yeah. And I just was like, God, I wanted that. Yeah. And then it was like, I was hateful to her. I didn't say anything or comment anything, but my mind didn't like her all of a sudden because it was like, she's just boasting about this and she doesn't know that other people are hurting, but she has the right to celebrate.
We all do.
A great thing that's going on in her life. Yeah. So I went therapy. I talked about that incident in therapy. I was like, this really set me back. Yeah. Because I want to try so much at being confident as a single mom and being proud of my family. But wow, that really hurt. And it exposed a wound. And she said, when you find a way to celebrate other people's successes with them, because when you find a way to be really happy for your friend, that she has this wonderful thing in her life, isn't that wonderful? Then you share in it instead of being negative. So it's like, I'm just thrilled at your fitness journey. And it's like, I'm really happy for my friend. Yeah. And I get to share in your journey with you. And that makes me feel good. Absolutely. Or I don't know another example of like, I even shared this with my mom. Sorry, Mom, I'm going to tell the story. She was like, Aunt Mindy, her sister, my mom's in her 70s, and she built a new house, and her kitchen was a lot bigger than my mom's kitchen.
Okay.
And she's like, I don't want to go over there. I was like, Mom, like, that's your sister.
Just be happy for her. She's got a great kitchen.
Right? Like, go over and use her kitchen to cook and don't get yours dirty. Like she's got a great big kitchen. Awesome. Like, can we learn, especially as women, to celebrate each other's successes instead of feeling envy? And when we, and don't just celebrate, like join. So I started like writing a card telling her congratulations to their anniversary and telling her how great I was, because then I got to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Right. Or going, I think for a while as a single mom, I didn't want to go to weddings. And instead going to the wedding and being the most joyful guest and giving a really thoughtful gift and writing a really thoughtful card about how to cherish their relationship. Because then I got to celebrate in their success without the need to cut them down.
Yeah. And it's learning how to celebrate in each other's success. It feels so much better than cutting them down. First of all, it feels way better.
Yes.
Inside of yourself. It feels exciting. You do get to share in it. And also finding the bravery to be seen and to be proud of where you are and what you do, and celebrate yourself, and not be afraid that person sitting across from you is going to feel intimidated, or and you know what, if they are, don't take that on, because that's not your responsibility. If they do feel that way, if it does make them uncomfortable, then that's not for you to take on. That's their mirror that they get to hold up and say, what about this makes me uncomfortable? What do I need to do differently in my life? If this person is bragging and I'm so jealous or envious of this person because they're bragging, then how can I look in the mirror and say, what do I need to do in my life to feel like I've also created or succeeded in a similar way? And then do it. Take action.
Yeah, that you just walked right into my second way we can conquer this, is when you feel like you're experiencing it and somebody's cutting you down, like if it's in business or success or whatever it is to realize that it's more about them than it is about you.
Always.
And instead of, honestly, like, it did some healing for me, because I have some anger and resentment of how I was treated in my past job. A lot.
Yeah.
And instead I was, you know what? That wasn't about me. That was about the things that they were dealing with.
Absolutely.
Inside them.
Had nothing to do with
that is not on me, because the symptoms of people that have experienced tall poppy syndrome are depression, anxiety, addiction, things that we do to make ourselves feel better because we feel so cut down.
Yeah.
And finding a way to say, that's not on me. Having pity on that person. And maybe not pity, that's kind of a mean word.
Maybe some empathy.
Empathy, that's a better word. Yeah. Empathy. To just understand, like, okay, all right. They're not at that place, but they're not on a different path, or they're on a different journey, and okay.
And that's one of the things that I really feel grateful for in what I do for a living, because I'm a coach. That's what I do for a living. And so I'm a hypnotherapist, I'm a nutrition coach, but it's a lot of, and a personal trainer, as you know. And so it's a lot of, any kind of health and wellness journey is also very emotional and mental. And you start to learn the limiting factors or the limiting beliefs that have held you back in the past. And so these kinds of things come up, and there's a lot of really, really emotional conversations. And so I really am always grateful that what I get to do for a living is kind of help people to see these perspectives, because it organically comes up in our coaching conversations. And so I have these conversations all of the time. And so that's what I said. I had written something, and I'm going to go grab it here in a second and read it for you guys, because I think it's really powerful and plays into exactly what we're talking about here.
So I think the other thing that I really want to personally do, I'm not going to tell anyone to do anything. What I realize that I want to do is I want to be the woman that waters the other tall poppies.
Yes.
and that sees the other tall poppies and is like, wow, girl, that's amazing.
It's amazing.
Because I know others haven't treated her that way when she's standing out and say, do you realize how incredible you are and what you're doing, Sarah? Like, do you realize what you did with this move on your own with 3 kids and getting this cute house? Like, that was, and you did it? Like, have you given yourself credit? Yeah, well, that was stressful, but do you realize what you did?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
You make me cry.
Good. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Like, do you realize how, and you pulled that off so quickly? That's awesome.
Thank you.
And water and like fertilize. Now what next can you do?
Yeah.
And it was like what I texted you. I don't know. I pulled it up. I don't have my reading glasses on. Women need other women in their lives who think they're a big deal. No competition, no backhanded comments, no jealousy, no hate. Just, I love you, I support you, and there was no one on earth like you kind of energy.
Which, when you sent that to me, I thought it was, I think it is so beautiful, and I'm so grateful for that. And I think that one of the things that's really important to call out, as we can all agree that women need more women like this.
Yeah.
But remembering that it starts with you.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So it starts with you, all of us. We can all say it starts with me. Because if you're waiting to have more women in your life like that for you to become the woman in somebody else's life that's like that, then you're never going to have more women in your life like that. You're going to attract the energy you put out. And so I think that it's really important for us to say, this starts with me. And no matter how any other women treat me, I am going to show up like that every time, no matter what, because it starts with me. And the more you show up like that, the more you're going to see people show up for you like that.
That's what I want brave single moms to be.
Beautiful. It's
That's
beautiful.
what I want, our online community that I'm building and all of these things is to be the biggest cheerleader you've ever had, right? Like, how about the marching band?
Beautiful.
That's following you. Like, look at her.
Yes,
like,
it's so good.
Look at that woman as a single mom. Like, yes. Like,
yes.
You are conquering it. That kind of energy.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all poppies.
Yes.
We got this.
We've got this, and there's a lot of things that we can do, but I think that the one that stands out for me most is take action. And I like lists. Yep. Okay. I'm a list maker. And so if you're listening to this thinking, yes, I have been the tall poppy before, I'm sure. But I think the harder question to ask yourself is, have I ever torn down a tall poppy? And that question's really important because it's going to be the window into your own personal growth, development, and success in this area. Because if you've ever been the person to tear down the tall poppy, I know I have, I'm not proud of it. We all have. Remember that time and ask yourself, was it about that person that you felt was them bragging, that made you irritated, that made you jealous, that made you envious? And then make an action list. Okay, what would have needed to be different about me and my life for me to not feel envious, but for me to feel happy for them
and celebrate their victory
them
with them?
Is it that you needed the promotion? Is it that you didn't have a husband? Is it that you? So what was it that needed to be different? And then start taking action, ladies, because we can create anything we want to create.
Can it just be as easy? I think what I want is like making a personal rule to like compliment another woman every day.
Every day. I love it.
Right?
I love it.
We just like, girl, your brows are on point today. I'm just saying, not in a weird way, but they look fantastic.
Yes.
Just the littlest thing. You know how good that would make you feel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially when it's a complete stranger. Like, there's 0 times in my memory that I've ever walked into a room and saw Amanda for the first time of the day that she didn't shower me with compliments. So she's definitely this woman.
I like it.
And also when we do it to a complete stranger, especially as, you are feeling good about yourself. Maybe you've got a nice outfit on. Maybe your hair is done. Maybe you're feeling really good. And you just give a woman a compliment. That feels good. Also, kind of some support. If maybe their toddler's throwing a tantrum in the grocery store. Don't give them dirty looks. Maybe their baby's crying on the airplane. Don't be mad. They're doing their best. Just girl, I know it's hard. You
Yeah.
got this.
I got you.
got
I
this.
usually try to make the kid laugh.
Yeah,
I stick out my tongue at a kid. It usually works every single time. Every single time I'm like, and they like,
yeah, because, I think it's easy, especially for people who don't have kids.
Yeah.
When I have kids, they're never going to be the kind of kids who do that.
girl, please.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. One more time, just a reminder. Women need other women in their lives who think they're a big deal. Be that woman. No competition, no backhanded comments, no jealousy, no hate. Just I love you. I support you. And there is no one on earth like you. That kind of energy.